to introduce you to Matt Baxter, who's the CEO of Australia. And under his leadership, I've written this out because I needed to. Under his leadership, they've been named in the BRW Best Places to Work list. They've been awarded the Media Agency of the Year for 2 successive years. And they were recently named Global Media Agency of the Year in Rome, Italy. So, welcome, Matt. Thanks for coming.
Okay, so look, this morning I'm going to take you through a little bit of an insight into the way that has built its innovation framework, and hopefully you guys can take away a little bit from some of the principles that we've created. So these are our internal principles and the things that guide the organisation to deliver innovation for us and our clients. We've got a pretty demanding client base. So amongst our clients, we've got Coca-Cola, we've got Lego, we've got Coles. So some really big advertisers that expect a lot from their marketing investment and expect us to be able to help work alongside and partner with them to deliver innovation in the marketplace on an ongoing basis. Before we get into that, though, I thought it was probably just worth talking to you a little bit about what we believe in our business innovation really is. And it will differ, I guess, and calibrate differently depending on the category and the business that you operate. But for us, really, innovation is 2 things. It's new ways to do old things, and finding new ways to do old things generally for us drives efficiency. So a good example might be that something that currently is done manually by a human being could potentially be done in a new way by a computer. Therefore, there's an efficiency gain for the business as a result of that innovation. The next thing, the other stream, if you like, of innovation that we really focus on is new ways to do new things. So this is generally a growth play for us. So this is stuff that is completely new and hopefully is going to grow our business or grow the commercial outcomes for the company. So they're the 2 streams that we primarily focus on. The ones on the left, we generally work internally on. The ones on the right, we generally work with clients on. So that's a little bit of info on that. So firstly, these are the 7 principles, right? This is a very subjective topic. So these 7 principles work for us. They might not work for you. Take away from this presentation what you will. Ignore the rest if it makes no sense to you. The first thing that we have as a guiding principle is what we call signposting. So in order for an organisation to take something seriously, it needs to be signposted within the organisation structurally. So most companies have an HR department, finance department, an IT department. If you want to have your organisation rally around a craft, you have to signpost it in the business. You have to call it out. So we have an innovation function within the business, and there is a chief innovation officer who is in charge of that function. That chief innovation officer sits on the board of the company alongside the CEO, alongside me, alongside the CIO, so that there is representation at the most senior level of the organisation. So signposting is a really important thing. Of course, when you signpost, what you want to be careful of is that you don't then suddenly make innovation something that only one person or a group of people is responsible for. So democratisation is also hugely important. Everybody in the organisation is responsible for innovation. Every single person at has in their job description as one of their KPIs, innovation. Every single person, including the receptionist, including the person that's the office runner, including the person that's a graduate just joining the business. Everybody is on the hook for it. And they're on the hook for it for one simple reason, to the point that all the other speakers made this morning. Innovation comes from everywhere. Innovation isn't self-selective. It can bubble out of any individual at any time. So actually making everybody responsible for it, you'd be surprised some of the genius that comes out of people that are kind of not affected or their minds shaped by some of the conventional thinking that exists in business. Sometimes it's the fresh grad coming out who kind of looks at a process that you've been doing for years and goes, this is bloody ridiculous. Why do we do this? We could do it in a far simpler, more efficient way. The next thing is start small and grow muscle. So like going to the gym, I'm not a good example. Like going to the gym, you don't go and bench press 150 kilos on your first outing. You're gonna get into trouble doing that. You have to build up to getting that strength and getting that muscle operating at its maximum efficiency. So for us, starting small, getting the organisation confident that it can innovate, and then growing from there is really, really important. Don't go for the big things too quickly and too early. It's like anything. If you try something and you fail, it gets harder and harder to bring the organisation along on the journey with you. So we were really careful 3 years ago when we launched our innovations practice to make sure that we got really early wins really fast, and people can see that change, and that change then drags them along and gets them excited about the future potential. This is a really important one. Be patient, right? If you innovate to have an impact in your current quarter or your next quarter, you're going to get disappointed. Most of the time, and it's not strictly all of the time, but most of the time, innovation takes time to happen. And patience is a really critical organisational trait to be successful in this area. There's a reason why private companies that aren't on the stock exchange often have more success in this space than others, because the stock exchange mentality is manage your business quarter to quarter, and shareholders expect to see an immediate return on their investment. And private businesses often have the freedom to be able to look longer term and have horizons that aren't necessarily a quarter or next quarter, but 36 months, 48 months. And, I'll give you an example. A campaign that we ran for a client that was a really, really successful campaign that actually just recently won at the Rome Awards that we were talking about, which actually won Global Media Campaign of the Year, which was for the federal government. That campaign took 2 years to build. So we started the campaign development in late 2011, and we launched it out into market in 2013. So 2 years of campaign development just to get the idea happening. So patience is a really important trait. This is probably the most important point I can leave you with, for us anyway, in our business, which is fail and celebrate. Don't fail and get over it. Don't fail and kind of curl up in the fetal position underneath your desk and cry. Fail, and when the organisation fails, actually celebrate your failure. One of the things that Australia is terrible at when you compare us to the US is Australians have got a very kind of, we don't take to failing well. Just look at sport, right? The minute a sportsman doesn't start performing or a sportswoman doesn't start performing, we all sledge them, they're crap, get them off. We're not a tolerant society when it comes to failure. The Americans are much better at this. The Americans can pick themselves up after being knocked down and have this optimism that is just almost kind of seems like, they're almost mental, that they're so optimistic. You kind of go, you failed. Why wouldn't you be really upset about that? And they're like, oh, we'll do it again. It'll be great. So, failure is the cost of innovation. You will always fail at something when you're innovating. And, Roger talked about this. There are those little mini steps, and you'll have attempts to try and fix things, and you won't succeed, and you have to go back and try again, and then you won't succeed. The thing about failure that's so amazing is you always remember your failures. I certainly remember my failures. And it's that learning that you want to celebrate. So we throw failure parties. Okay, so we run a internal event that we call the Cannes Badvertising, which is the worst stuff that was ever done. And we have a RIP kind of rest in peace list of ideas that we think were fantastic that clients killed. That we kind of, we go through like a post-mortem at meetings and go, wow, wasn't this a crazy idea? And it never got off the ground, but we kind of celebrate the fact that this crazy idea that probably was never going to get off the ground, that no client was ever going to fund, actually was killed, and we learn from that experience as an organisation. This point is, I think, a really important point. Never, ever bet more than you can afford to lose on innovation. And this goes, unless your back is to the wall. Apple's back was to the wall in the early 2000s. They were about to be bankrupt. They were running at a loss. Jobs came back in as the Messiah. They had nothing to lose. They could bet the house on the iPod, because if they didn't bet the house on the iPod or the iMac or whatever, then the business just wouldn't have existed. So in that situation, sometimes you do want to make a big bet. But most of the time, for established businesses, you don't ever want to bet more than you can afford to write off the books. So I've seen some clients, you know, throw ridiculous sums of money at things. And then when they haven't worked, they've said, oh, my God, this is a disaster. You know, business is in all sorts of drama because of it, and we're going to have to cut here and there, and we weren't expecting it. You shouldn't run your innovations pipeline in a way that could detrimentally impact the rest of your business if it doesn't succeed. Because to the point earlier, failure is a cost of entry. And a lot of people talked about this final point. This is the final point of the 7 principles, which is you must lead from the front. If you are the leader of your organisation, you are the Chief Innovation Officer. You are the person that is on the hook to model the behaviour and to back the bets that the organisation is making. There is no coincidence that the best innovation companies in the world have charismatic leaders that are their Chief Innovation Officers. Apple had it with Jobs. Google has it with Larry and Sergey. Virgin has it with Richard Branson. These companies are led by people who genuinely embrace the culture of innovation themselves, and they set the tone for the organisation. And you know the point about failure, I think the important point about that is these guys give those people in their organisations permission to fail, except for Jobs. He didn't. But most of the time, these guys are the guys that set the course, allow the organisation to embrace the culture of innovation and really back it throughout the entire company. So, guys, that's my 7 principles. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of the morning. Thank you.